My prime reason for wanting to blog was because I desired an additional outlet for my writing. Blogging seemed to allow for a stronger, more personal and expressive voice than I could use either at Wine Enthusiast or, pardon me, Blake, wherever you are, there you are, in my books for University of California Press. I had been edited by others for 20 plus years, and while I respect the role of an editor, and I have always believed that my job is to make my editor's job easy by turning in perfect copy by the deadline, I also always chafed a little bit at being edited. I'd never been my own boss, never been able to write what I wanted to, when I wanted to, publish it when I wanted to, and be read. Blogging gave me that opportunity. I started with a great deal of naivety. I had no idea what to expect. Just prior to starting, I'd spent months examining wine blogs and found them wanting. I mean, many were not written particularly well. Too many seemed to consist of some variation of, I had Zinfandel last night with pasta and it was really good. I thought that was boring, but I also saw the creative possibilities of this art form. I knew it would take me a while to discover my blog's real theme, what you could call my author's voice. I never gave a moment's thought to who my audience would be, to reaching out, driving comments, hits, visits. I didn't even know what that stuff was, and I barely understand it today. Maybe I'll learn tomorrow. I just wanted to do the best writing I could. About the only thing I knew was that it was important to blog 5 days a week. I got that from Tom Wark, who wrote a very kind review shortly after I started. Thank you, Tom, wherever you are. Where's that? Most days, I would wake up early and try to find something to write about and post by 9 a.m. California time. Sometimes, if I was lucky, a great story would fall into my lap, but more often I'd have to prowl the internet and plumb the depths of my brain looking for topics. From the very start, I had to be sensitive to the fact that I am employed by Wine Enthusiast. So I decided not to review wines on my blog, or at least to issue scores, or to write about things of a war zone. It was the notorious Rockaway incident. I had been noticing in the summer of 2008 that the bloggers I was reading were all blogging about the same wine, Rodney Strong's Rockaway bottling of Cabernet Sauvignon. It was a wine I had never seen. It was puzzling. I wondered if it were pure coincidence that so many bloggers were blogging about the same wine and in such glowing terms. That's when I found out that Rodney Strong's PR team, and in particular, a really smart guy named Rob Larson, had pulled off a real coup. They decided to send that wine to bloggers, not print media like me, even though I was blogging by then. It was an historic first. I also found out that Rod Strong had done this only on the condition that the bloggers agree in advance to write about it. They didn't have to write positively about it, but they did have to agree to give it publicity. To me, that was a violation of an unwritten rule of wine journalism. Never promise anybody anything, lest you compromise your independence and your integrity and become somebody's stooge. I wrote a comment on the blog of someone who had received that Rockaway wine, and I apologize that I don't remember whose blog that was. And I asked in my comment if perhaps Rodney Strong wasn't manipulating bloggers into giving them free PR. And it was that word, manipulating, that got the bloggers so upset. Look, I'm a reporter. After all these years, I'm very aware of the possibility of being used by wineries, and particularly by PR and marketing people, They can be fine human beings. And some of my best friends in the wine industry work in those fields. But you have to be careful. You get invitations to lunch and dinner all the time. You get invited to go on junkets. You get all kinds of perks, not to mention all that free wine. These are given to you not because people love you, but to entice you into writing about their wine, hopefully positively. So when I posted my comment, I was just expressing my point of view that Rodney Strong had effectively bought itself a lot of free publicity by sending Rockaway to the bloggers. I also thought the bloggers were overdoing it a little by congratulating themselves on being such a great part of history. I mean, some of them were breaking their arms patting themselves on the back. So it wasn't that Rodney Strong bypassed traditional media and went straight to social media that bothered me. Good for them. It was the promise that bloggers would write about the wine and their unrestrained excitement in doing so that got to me. Well, the comments to my comment on that blog were explosive and mostly negative. People said I was just jealous that I'd been bypassed. They said I was afraid of losing my job. They said print was dead and dinosaurs like Steve should just get out of the way. I was accused of the most terrible things, some of which I'll mention in a moment. So the next day I blogged on the topic at steveheimoff.com, more of the same, and that chain of incidents, I think, is the source of the theory that there is a rift between wine bloggers and print journalists. It's not really pleasant to find myself the target of disparagement in chat rooms, on blogs, and Twitter. I've been called everything from a douchebag, and a blobber, to a tool, and a donkey, and a sock puppet, to words I can't repeat. Sock puppet was a new one on me. I've been accused of trading scores for sex. I've been accused of giving high scores to wine enthusiast advertisers, which is very ironic, considering how unhappy I make my employer sometimes because I give low scores to those very advertisers. My personal life has been attacked, my motives questioned. Here's a recent zinger. Quote, "The real shame is that you know that you and your blog is utterly vacuous, and yet you smirk and prattle on. I would further say that what the industry doesn't need is any more supercilious bloviating from the likes of you. You are welcome and you are dismissed." End quote. I try not to let these things get to me. Life's too short for stress. And, as we used to say as kids, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never harm me. I've tried to understand the nature of the resentment and the anger. Is it jealousy? Is somebody off their meds? Have I, in fact, done anything to deserve it? But in the final analysis, I just can't get too hung up with this stuff. So that was my baptism by fire into the world of wine blogging. Now, 2 years later, in retrospect, I think we can view that incendiary summer of 2008 from a higher and more objective level. Wine bloggers felt that they were the wave of the future and that print was dead or dying. An impression which the mainstream media itself fostered, and that was made all the more urgent in the fall of 2008, the infamous fourth quarter, when Lehman Brothers collapsed and the entire world was plunged into recession